Hello everyone, I hope you're all good. I haven't made a side-by-side growth comparison video in absolutely ages, and I was looking at my houseplant tour video the other day, the one that I filmed last year of this room, and I was noticing that some of my plants have been through some pretty significant changes since then, and there's others that I don't think I've even updated you on at all. So I thought I could take you through some of them today, do a little before and after, show you what's going on with them and how far they've come. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And I've got some plants that have been through some pretty big ups and downs since the last time I showed you them. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. I've just taken my slippers off and I've realised how much of a boost they give me, so I'm going to have to angle the camera down a little. There we go, that's better. But as I say, the clips that I'm comparing the plants now to are from my houseplant tour video, which I made 10 months ago now. I will link the full video down below if you want to go and watch it. It's a very long video. But yeah, these are just the ones that stood out to me as I was going through, and just I was like, oh my god, that looks really different, or I've got a lot to say on that. So yeah, I haven't chosen for any particular reason apart from that. But I am going to start with my Rhaphidophora foraminifera. Just on the floor, I've got this little Rhaphidophora foraminifera, and I haven't had this one that long. I think I've had it about 6 months in total, and I picked this up as a cutting at a plant swap last year, and already it's given me some amazing growth. It wasn't a top cut I got, it was just a mid cut, and this was the only leaf it had at the time. But as you can see, it's giving me some really, really beautiful growth now that it's got going. And I've recently put it onto a moss pole, and it hasn't actually started to root into the pole yet. It's just kind of growing next to the pole. I should really actually tie it to the pole and try and encourage its aerial roots in a little bit. But I'm just really excited for this one because as it sizes up, it starts to get the most beautiful fenestrations that run all the way down the middle of the leaf. If I can find a picture, I'll pop it on the screen so that you can see. But yeah, I'm just really excited for the potential of this plant. So it's growing well for me so far. It hasn't given me any grief. It's another one as well, as you can see, that I am growing in semi-hydroponics. So I've got it in Lechuza Pon, and then I've just got a little water reservoir at the bottom and it feeds from that. So this is what the plant is looking like now, and it's absolutely ginormous. As you can see, it's actually massively growing off its moss pole, so it's definitely due for a moss pole extension. And to be honest, I think a really good pot upgrade as well, because it's in quite a small pot. I think it's still in the same pot as it was before actually. It's in quite a small pot for the size of the growth, and if you look, it's just like all roots around there. But I am so proud of this plant, and I'm so happy with how it's growing and developing. I think I said in that previous clip about how when the plant kind of develops and matures, it gets these beautiful fenestrations in the center of the leaf, and that is starting to happen now. Like with every leaf, it's becoming a little bit more and more, and it is just pushing out another new leaf at the moment, so I feel like it's gonna just be fully mature soon, and that makes me so happy. Because this is a plant that I was so excited about, but it's a type of Rhaphidophora that I have never grown before, and to be honest, didn't really know that much about. So I had no sense of, I think at the time of filming this, I'd only had the plant a couple of months, if I remember correctly. And I didn't really have a massive sense of like how quick the plant was going to be to size up or anything like that. So I think 10 months, considering this is also one that I don't want to say neglected, but I haven't done that much to. I've obviously had it on a moss pole, had it in semi-hydro, I've had it in as high a light spot as I can possibly provide. It's over by my window over there. And I just feel like the growth it's giving me is very motivating. Like I don't know, it makes me feel enthusiastic to carry on with this plant and to work hard to bring out the best in it, because at the moment, as I say, it's been doing incredibly well with not a huge amount of care. It hasn't needed a huge amount, but now I'm like, okay, how could I take things to the next level? Like obviously pot upgrade, moss pole upgrade, how could I really bring out like the ultimate potential in this plant? Because yeah, at some point what I will probably do when I'm feeling a little bit braver, once I've extended the moss pole and once it's really rooted in, like, oh my god, oh my goodness, I've got slanted ceilings in this flat and I almost snapped the leaf holding it up to show you, oh my goodness. If you look at the back of the moss pole, you can see it is all root. Once I've extended the moss pole and it has rooted in a little bit more, I will probably do a very scary chop and extend and try and conserve the lovely big growth and get rid of this little bit on the bottom, just because, not that this isn't lovely, I just would really like to grow a big full plant that is all like this, you know. So that's the plan, and if it's done this in 10 months, in another 10 months, if it keeps sizing up the way that it is, I want to say, and this is a plant prediction, that from floor, it could be maybe like the height of me. I don't think that's overly ambitious, because from what I know about Rhaphidophora and from what I know about growing plants big on moss poles, typically once they get going they are unstoppable. It's kind of like my Monstera dubia, because that one for quite a while was kind of, I don't know, a little bit slow to get going, and then when it started giving me mature growth, it was giving me like 2 leaves at a time sometimes from like one stem. It was insane. So I kind of get a similar feeling about this plant. But yeah, it's a beautiful one, I love it, and as I say, I am just unbelievably proud. And then this next one is one that I very rarely talk about on my channel, and I can't remember if I have given you an update since I filmed my houseplant tour, but it is my Philodendron Campii Linnet. This is a Philodendron Campii Linnet, and I think it is beautiful. Just look how ruffly those leaves are. It's one that I'd wanted for a really long time, and I just decided that now was the time I was going to treat myself. So yeah, currently this is where I'm growing it, and it does seem very happy there. As you can see, it's starting to give me some new growth, which will be the first new leaf it gives me in my care, which is very exciting. But I do think it is one that could probably be transitioned to cope in lower lighting conditions as well, should I want to do that. Currently, I think I'm quite happy with it here, to be honest, but as things shift and change throughout my collection this year, I may decide to mix things up a little bit. So in the clip that you just saw of that plant, I hadn't had it very long and I didn't really know much about it. And this is what it's looking like now. It's doing really, really, really well. And it's hard to say whether or not this is like good growth for 10 months, because honestly, I've got to say, this is one of my, I was going to say lowest maintenance philodendrons. It's almost one of my lowest maintenance plants, and I know that might sound crazy because it's an aroid and like typically they do like regular waterings and stuff like that, but I grow this one over by my TV, and obviously it's got kind of indirect light from the grow lights in my cabinet, but apart from that I would say it's in a fairly kind of low light spot, and if I was to put a lot of my other tropical plants into that position, they probably wouldn't do very well, or they'd go dormant. And this one has consistently, even over the winter months, it has consistently given me new growth, and it hasn't kind of stopped or seemingly slowed down at all, which I think is really quite amazing. So at some point when I either have a little bit more space or have the chance to do like a bigger, better grow light setup, I just feel like this one is going to go mad. As I say, I haven't optimized its conditions to be the best for this plant just because I haven't got the room to do so. But all things considered, it has done amazingly. The one thing that I will say about this plant, however, is that it is a magnet for spider mites. And I know when I first got this plant, some of you guys were saying, oh my God, watch out, like that one's awful. And I think like the first month or two, I was like, nope, absolutely fine. And then all of a sudden they came out in force, and every other plant around this one was fine. And this one was just absolutely riddled. So typically what I do when it comes time to water this plant is I'll take it through to the shower and I will just give it a really good spritz down as I water it. And that has been keeping them at bay, but it is one that I've still got a very close eye on. The one thing that I have noticed with this plant is extra floral nectary wise, it is crazy. Do you see those little globs? Oh, so my nails are so bad, I'm not going to show them. Those little globs of what look like sap just there. Extra floral nectaries, or ENTs as they're commonly referred to, are basically nectar secreting glands that have nothing to do with pollination. There's lots of theories as to why they exist in certain types of plant, but the most common, and I believe the one with the most scientific backing, is that they are to deter pests, or I think they are to encourage a certain type of ant or something like that that is drawn to the nectar because it's nice and sweet, and in turn, as it's on the plant, will also get rid of any other pests that might be on the plant. I believe that's correct. Please, someone do correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, sometimes that can be a sign that a plant is quite susceptible to pests if it is prone to lots of extra floral nectaries. And I think of the aroids in my collection that are very prone to them, and it's typically this one, my Philodendron Dean McDowell, but back when I had my Gloriosum, my Philodendron Gloriosum, Melanochrysum, and all of these ones, I've got to say, are very, very susceptible to pests. So it does make sense. But the one thing that I feel like I should do with this plant very soon is I should probably get it onto either a moss pole or stake it up, because it's very wobbly in its pot at the moment. And obviously it has started putting out little aerial roots. I think these ones are probably a little bit useless now. They're very dry, but I'm not entirely sure what the best way is to grow this plant, because it doesn't strike me as a philodendron that needs to climb. I think it's sizing up nicely in lower levels of light without anything at all. So I'm kind of thinking just a little bit of upright guidance might be all it needs. But yeah, if you guys have this plant, if you're growing this one successfully, do let me know what you're doing for it, because I would love to know. But yeah, it's just one that I am loving more and more, even if I don't speak about it that much. And then this next one is the Schismatoglottis Silver Borneo. And another fairly new one that I have not shown you yet is this beautiful Schismatoglottis SP Silver Borneo. And just look at the colour of those leaves. Isn't that just beautiful? I love Schismatoglottis as a genus, and I've had a Wallachii before, and that's actually back on my wish list at the moment. And they're quite similar in a lot of ways, in my experience, to Calathea to grow. There are a lot of similarities between them, but they do typically enjoy slightly higher levels of light. So yeah, I thought cabinet life would suit this one very well, and so far it seems very, very happy. It's got some new growth coming up here. And I believe I'm right in saying that I got this plant at the same time as the Campii Lynette, the philodendron that I just showed you. I think I got them in the exact same order. But this is what the plant's looking like now. And when I was looking back at the clip beforehand, I was like, it doesn't feel like the plant has grown that much per se, but the structure of it has kind of changed. Like before, it was very tall, and I think it only had a few leaves, but the leaves were really quite big. And now it's much shorter and bushier, and I'm sure that is just because it's acclimated to my home environment and it's just starting to grow in a way that works well. But I must say, considering Schismatoglottis as a genus is one that I have previously struggled with. I found it quite a high maintenance plant. I found it one that's very susceptible to pests. I have actually, on the whole, found this one really, really easy. And I think the way in which I'm growing this plant, and again, It's a little bit dry at the moment, but I'm growing it in semi-hydro with a reservoir at the bottom. As you can see, it's got roots coming out of the bottom, and that has just been such a good way for me to be able to monitor it. It's a really, really, really good one at letting you know when it's thirsty. So often I'll just see it in my cabinet kind of going, oh, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, throw some water on it quick. And it perks up really quickly as well. I haven't yet transitioned it out of my cabinet, and it is a plant that I do know doesn't need like crazy levels of heat and humidity. It probably would do fine outside the cabinet, so maybe I'll have a mix up at some point soon. I love it in there, but I think if I want to continue to try and get this plant to size up, I do need to give it a little bit more space and probably move it closer to, move it closer to like a bigger light source. I don't know, I think just because it's sheltering quite a lot of itself at the moment as it's kind of filled out at the bottom, I feel like I want to put it by a window. I don't know, it's just what my gut is telling me. But again, apart from that, like this one has had spider mites before, but it has been spider mite free for, oh God, I want to say around about 10 months. I think I found spider mites on this plant either a few weeks before or a few weeks after I filmed my houseplant tour, and I was like, oh God, because that's the thing that brought down my last Schismatoglottis. I was like, oh God, it's another one that's really, really susceptible. And I did one treatment, and touch wood, they haven't come back, and the plant just has been healthy and thriving since. I have had the occasional little pesty thing going on in my cabinet, not an outbreak or an infestation or anything like that, but I've seen the odd thrip here or there. Unfortunately, they have avoided this plant, so I do think either maybe the plant is just much healthier now, but I do think it's maybe more resilient than I initially was led to believe that it was. But yeah, it is undeniably beautiful. I just love the foliage on this one. It is so gorgeous. It's kind of like a gorgeous bluey green. And the thing I love about Schismatoglottis, and this is what I adored about the Wallachii as well, is that close to the main vein, it almost just looks like it's been painted. It's so pretty. So yeah, again, similarly to what I just said about the last one, although this is one that I don't share many updates on and I don't talk about a huge amount, it is just one that makes me really happy. It brings me so much joy, and I really love growing. I really love having it in my collection. Oh my goodness, and this one is a little bit crazy. So this is the Hoya pubicalyx splash. And here I decided to put some of my Hoya pubicalyx splash cuttings in this little terrarium, and I just monitor its reservoir by taking it out and looking at the bottom there. I can see at the moment it needs filling because it's very dry, but these ones seem really happy in there. I can't like fully tilt them and show you because, as you can see, they are in semi-hydro and it just spills, but it's a really beautiful Hoya. I am just a sucker for splashy Hoyas. I think they are so pretty. And if you're familiar with Hoya as a genus, you'll probably know that it's not typically considered one of the fastest plants to grow. In fact, some species can be really, really quite slow, particularly variegated ones. However, this one has gone absolutely bonkers in the time since I last showed you it. It is literally escaping out of the vessel that I'm growing it in. So there is a lot that needs to happen here. It's got these crazy tendrils that I can see little leaves starting to form on, and it's starting to climb itself. Like you can see, it is just winding round. It is desperate for something to climb. So I must get this one onto a trellis. To be honest, I think because it is a plant that is so low maintenance, like I throw some water on it, like, I don't know, I monitor the little reservoir at the bottom, which, as you can see there, has got some lovely roots in it. I kind of monitor that when I think of it. So sometimes this plant will go like a month without me filling up its reservoir. And I just looked back at it the other day when I was taking my big Monstera deliciosa out, because it's still in the same corner over there that I showed you it in before. I was moving my Monstera out and I was like, why can't I pull it out? And this had just tendrilled all the way around the main stem of my Monstera, and I was like, oh my goodness, a trellis is needed. So I now need to figure out how I'm going to grow this plant, because it's clearly happy in semi-hydro. I love the look of it like this. So part of me is thinking, if I want to continue growing the plant like this, obviously it's never going to be a long-term thing. It will continue to outgrow it, but I could take some cuttings, keep the main kind of mother plant in this for now, and propagate those sections, and then, I don't know, get a big full one going at some point. I'm not fully decided yet, so if you've got any thoughts, let me know what you would do in this situation. But the thing I really love about it since it started kind of really sizing up is the growth has become even more beautiful and silvery and splashy, and in some lights, and actually on camera isn't showing that much, but in some lights when it's under the grow light, parts of it actually look quite pink because it's sun stressed so much. It's literally right by my mother grow light and it's keeping it so happy. So yeah, I would say right now this is probably one of my favourite Hoyas in my collection. There are a few Hoyas that are just like staples that I can never see myself getting rid of, and I really just love. I just absolutely love. And this is always one that I liked, but I think it's just grabbed my attention so much recently that yeah, I'm bumping it up the list. But it's another one that has been so easy to grow. It can absolutely survive in lower levels of light as well. I've got plenty of Hoyas, in fact one of them is on this list, that grow very well in fact in lower levels of light. But I think if you are looking to achieve, oh, that's a pinky leaf, can we see that one? Can you see that? Oh, it doesn't look as pink on camera. But yeah, if you are looking to achieve really kind of fast, dramatic growth like this in your plant, then yeah, then higher light is absolutely preferred. It is a very succulent plant, and typically they do like higher levels of light, but no, it's just one that I am so proud of. And then you'll see why this next one is back on the list, because this is one that has absolutely been on a journey, and it is my Dieffenbachia sparkles. And then at the back here, I've got, this is a Dieffenbachia, and I've only ever known this one referred to as Dieffenbachia sparkles, or something like that. I can't remember exactly, and I don't know the Latin name for it, so I'll either put it on the screen, or again, if you know, please let me know. But it's got really beautiful foliage. It's growing pretty well for me. Again, it's a very hardy plant. It hasn't really given me any grief, but I do know that this one has currently got fungus gnats, and the reason you can't see them buzzing about is purely because the soil is pretty much bone dry at the moment, and I've been waiting for it to dry out because I want to go in with a nematode treatment. I've spoken about it before, but for me, nematodes are like the best possible thing for getting rid of fungus gnats. But every single time I watered this plant, I have noticed lots of little flies starting to fly about, and I've noticed them a little bit throughout my house as well. So yeah, the next time I water this, which will probably be later today, that is what I'm going to be doing. So you will notice that this plant is looking very different to the last time, well, the clip that I just compared it to in that video. And I know I have spoken a lot about this one and the way that it's regrown, and I'll get onto that in a moment, but there is a reason I'm showing you it today as well. So basically, I think, oh God, a matter of weeks to a month after filming my houseplant tour, the plant, what went on with the plant? Something went on with the plant. I want to say it got pests, but I don't think it was pest related. For whatever reason, I decided to lop the plant back. Maybe it was just getting leggy. I honestly don't know. But I lopped the plant back and I put it into a prop box and I let it regrow. And when it regrew with foliage like that, which is obviously very different to what you just saw in the previous clip. And I was a little bit baffled, and I was like, why does it look so different? And loads of you guys were saying, oh, it's just reverted, like that does just happen sometimes. And I was quite sad about it because I loved the sparkly pattern on it. And so I took a big cut of the kind of like the big leggy section that was there in the middle, and in fact I'm propagating that in water over by the window at the moment. It's doing very well. The grand plan is to pot them all up together. But in the last couple of months, it has actually started, the new growth, to become very sparkly again, which makes me so happy. So I'm thinking maybe it just reverted in juvenile growth and now it's pushing that back out. I've never experienced this with a Dieffenbachia before. I don't think I've ever, maybe, I don't know, I don't think I've ever lopped one back this significantly before, but I have just found it really fun and really interesting to regrow. I also, again, think this is like prime example as to why chopping your plants back and restarting them is often a really good idea. I am so much happier with the way that it's growing now. I think although it is a little bit shorter than it was before, like it is going to be such a full, bushy, healthy plant when it's back to, like when it's reached the height it was at before. Yeah, like Dieffenbachia is really one that I think is a very underrated genus of plant. I've got a few in my collection. The tropic snow that I've got over there that I got from Emma's wedding, that one really has my heart. I think it is such a beautiful plant, and I'm just kind of determined to get more Dieffenbachia doing well in my collection, because Dieffenbachia was one of my very early days plants. I don't think it was one of my, like, the first 2 or 3 or anything, but I want to say like one of the first 10 plants that I ever brought into my home. I knew nothing about it at the time, and I don't know exactly what happened to it, but my guess is it probably died. I probably killed it. And yeah, in the last couple of years, I've really been getting back into growing this plant, obviously knowing a little bit more now, and I'm finding it really, really fun. So yeah, it's one I would highly recommend. It's so lovely. And again, I really look forward to seeing what it looks like in another 10 months. Shall I do another prediction? This is nowhere near as crazy as the other one, but I would say from hip height, I reckon maybe it could be about there. Let's review in 10 months and see if I was right. And then I thought I just needed to include this one because it has been through such a significant change. It is my Monstera dubia. This is my large form Monstera dubia, and I have grown this plant since it was about that big. If I can find a picture, I'll put it on the screen somewhere. And I think probably out of all of the plants in my collection, this is the one that I feel like I've really been able to bring out the best potential in so far. I feel like the way in which this one's growing is the most representative of perhaps how it would be growing in its natural habitat. I've also got a section of my Monstera dubia, the shingling version, on a plank just over there that we will come to shortly. But last year, when this one really started to size up, I decided to add an extension of moss pole onto the back of the plank so that this plant could root into it. And then essentially when I chopped the plant, I didn't have to start a propagation process all over again. The plant was already rooted. I just potted it straight up, and it took a little while to get going. But as you can tell by the size of her now, she's literally taller than me. And to be honest, I think I'm probably going to have to chop this plant soon. So obviously, if you watch my other videos, you will know that I did chop up my Monstera dubia. I'll put when it was on the screen because I can't remember. A couple of months ago now, something like that. Because it had mealybugs, and I was just like, the plant kind of needs a chop back anyway because it's so big. I'm gonna do a chop and restart, and it was a very scary thing to do. But this is the big top cutting that I took from it. It really is huge. And it's like, I want to say it's doing well. Like, it's not fully rooted yet, but I am trying to root it in this. And I think the fact that it's been a set amount of time and it hasn't died back is really, really encouraging. In fact, there hasn't been that much like damage at all. There's a tiny bit of yellowing going on that leaf, but apart from that, it looks pretty remarkable. I honestly expected it to do worse. And then what I did with the rest of the plant is I essentially sliced up the moss pole that it was on, and I've got to say that is, like, it's doing okay, but I have done very little with that section of the plant. It is through in the bedroom in, I think, the plastic box I put it into when I first chopped it up. It's right by the window, so it's getting good light. I've got growth points on a couple of bits through there, which is good. However, there's a couple of sections that I've had to take out, and they're currently in the bathroom because I am still struggling with mealybugs on them. So touch wood, this section here, I haven't given it a proper look over in about a week, but the last time I really closely checked it, I couldn't see anything at all. It was pest free. So yeah, what I would really like to do is I'd like to restart this plant, and I'd like to just keep growing it because I do adore the Monstera dubia big. I think it is a spectacle of a plant. It is something that looks like I mean, this just looks like a section of jungle, doesn't it? It looks like something you've just lifted out of the rainforest. It truly blows my mind that something like this can grow in a UK home environment. It's just crazy. So yeah, although I could absolutely restart the plant from the sections in the moss pole, kind of propagating through in the bedroom, I would prefer to start over from this section, firstly because it's the top cut, and I don't know why, I just like working with top cuts better on the whole. That's bad grammar. I like working with them more, that's the word, because I think obviously you kind of feel like you're off to a good start already, like you're not breaking any kind of growth pattern, you don't have to wait for new growth points. And the section here, the growth point at the top here, has shriveled a little bit, so I don't know, it hasn't completely died back or anything, but I don't know, it's a little bit crusty, and there's no sign of any new growth at the moment, which is to be expected. I think until this plant has got some really, really good roots on it, I'm not going to see any new growth. So yeah, at some point in the next, I guess, month or two, I should probably take it out of the air layering system and have a look and see what's going on. At the moment, all I'm doing is just kind of squirting some water into each little gap in here to try and keep it as hydrated as I possibly can and hope that that is enough for it. But yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. I'm feeling optimistic about this one, but it's obviously in a very different state to how it was. So yeah, I will continue to keep you updated, and in the meantime, just keep your fingers crossed for it. And then I thought I would include another Hoya on this list. This is my Hoya gracilis. Is the Hoya gracilis, and I just think this is such a beautiful Hoya. I actually accidentally ordered 2 of these a couple of years ago. I can't remember where I got them from, but I accidentally ordered 2, and typically I'd find a new home for the second one, but I loved it so much I was like, I'm gonna keep both of them. So now I have 2 full plants. But yeah, it's growing in fairly low light conditions. It really doesn't give me any grief. It can go weeks without watering. It's just fantastic. Hoyas are also pet friendly as well, which is definitely worth bearing in mind if you've got pets, small children, anything like that. So yeah, it's just an all-round winner in my opinion. And I know I've already said once in this video that people can often think Hoyas are quite slow to grow. The reason that I wanted to show you the Hoya gracilis is not only because it has filled out and grown so much since the last time I showed you, but this one has been growing in really quite low light. It's growing on my hanging rail that I showed you. I think, like, I don't think I've changed the position of it since I showed you it in that last clip. And especially at this time of year in the darker winter months, obviously the hours of light are less and the light it's receiving is far less intense. And it's just been putting out new growth literally all the time, non-stop, which is really quite unbelievable because I talk a lot about plants that can cope in lower lighting conditions and will survive in lower levels of light. But very rarely do I, or like not that often do I talk about a plant like this that actually thrives in lower levels of light. And don't get me wrong, I've grown this plant in different lighting conditions over the years. I know it is also one that can take full sun, but it just goes to show how incredibly adaptable it is because this is so much fuller than it was 10 months ago. And I'm thinking at some point, especially now it's a really quite well established plant, I might get it out of a hanger and I might maybe pot it up because I have got some other sections of the Hoya gracilis that I would love to pot up with this plant and maybe combine them all, make a lovely full plant and I don't know, put it on top of my cabinet or something and have it trailing down there. I love the texture of it. Every time I see it, I just think it's so lovely. Like it's so waxy, but it's almost like waxy feathers. Do you know what I mean? It's just such a lovely one. So yeah, I need to repot so many of my hanging plants anyway. They are repots that I often put off because I'm like, not only is it just going to be like a normal repot, I've then got to get them into different hangers and different pots and da 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 da. So for that reason, there are some that have just been waiting way too long. And this is one. It's obviously not complaining, which is good, but yeah, it is one that would absolutely do well with a pot upgrade. So I will likely be doing that in the next few weeks. But yeah, if you're looking for a really, really hardy plant that is fairly fast to grow, can survive in literally pretty much any lighting condition, is pet friendly as well, non-toxic, then I highly recommend the Hoya gratis. I just think it's absolutely wonderful. And I thought I would include this next one just because it's one that I really don't talk about very much. And someone commented the other day saying, do you have this plant? And I was like, I do, but I never speak about it. So yeah, it is the Cebu Blue. And then this is the one that I was telling you about earlier that is not doing well. This is the mother plant of my Cebu Blue. And I say mother plant, I'm actually lying there. This is not the one that I got the cuttings from that I showed you. I got the cuttings from the plant swap. But yeah, this one is just looking very battered. It's got lots of yellowing leaves, it's got lots of browning, and it has just been a little bit neglected. And occasionally I must admit, I do neglect my hanging plants a little bit just because it's a bit more effort to actually get the steps out and get up to do stuff to them. And a lot of the plants I've got up here for this reason are very hardy plants. They're ones like Hoyas and stuff like that that are very drought tolerant. But this one, I mean, it can be quite drought tolerant, but I think also it's maybe not potted in the best soil mix. So I need to give this one a little bit of TLC to get it looking a little bit happier again. So obviously in that last clip, this plant was looking very battered and not very well at all. I did end up completely chopping that plant up, and as I say, I did have some other cuttings as well. So I potted them all together and I got this plant into semi-hydro, and this is what it's looking like now. It is so much healthier. And I know you might be looking at this thinking, oh my God, 10 months, it's a Cebu Blue. It should be so much bigger than that. However, again, this is one that I have been growing in really quite low light. It's another one that's been on my hanging rail, and there are a few plants that I've got growing up there that at this time of year do go a little bit dormant. This one hasn't actually gone into full dormancy. It has continued giving me growth the whole time I've had it up there, but I have noticed that over the winter its growth has slowed right down, and that is just to be expected. But this is the first time in so long that I've actually got a healthy Cebu Blue in my collection, because, like, as crazy as it sounds, and I think it's probably me just, I don't know, needing to give myself a bit of a slap on the wrist because I'm being a lazy plant parent, but I have actually struggled quite a bit with the Cebu Blue over the years. I have never really had one that's been that healthy. I think probably because it's an epipremnum, oh God, I was going to say I've neglected it. I know that's a bad thing to say. I think I've just often noticed it when it's a bit too late, and that's probably how you saw it in the last clip. But yeah, I feel very grateful that I've managed to kind of pull this one back, and it is doing so well now. It's a plant that I'm really enjoying growing now. I think sometimes you do just need to, I don't know, like, reevaluate your way of growing, and, like I have spoken about so much recently, get rid of some things if they're not bringing you joy. And for such a long time, and I constantly still to this day need to remind myself that I don't need to do this, but for such a long time I would look at a plant's potential and I was like, even if I don't particularly like it now, and maybe I won't like it for the next 5 years, at some point it could do this. And yeah, for that reason, I've hung on to plants that actually I don't like that much over the years. And I did have a pretty big, not even just downsize, like a pretty big rehome of things that weren't bringing me joy last year. So yeah, I didn't get rid of this one because I was like, it's not just the potential, it's the fact that I think if I had a little bit more like time to focus on it, I could do better. And I have, so yay. But yeah, my mission now is I'd like to take some cuttings and I'd like to try growing a few sections of it in different ways. I know if you grow this plant on a moss pole in higher light, it has the potential to really size up and fenestrate. And although I do just love it like this as a hanging plant, to be honest, I would like to try and achieve that kind of growth as well. So yeah, I've said already I'd like to do more experimenting this year. So I think this is one that I'm going to put on my experimentation list. But for the meantime, just focus on keeping it healthy. And I've just realised I've chosen to do 3 hanging plants in a row, but this next one is my Boston Fern. Here I've got my Boston Fern, and I actually made a care video on this plant not that long ago because this is one of the plants in my collection that I think I've probably struggled the most with over the years. Don't get me wrong, I love the Boston Fern, but I have killed several Boston Ferns in my time, and I can just find ferns quite difficult. I know they are perhaps slightly higher maintenance than some other house plants, and they do require specific conditions, or like if you don't have like the ideal home environment, they require specific conditions. But the Boston Fern is one that I had a really hard time with, but I feel like I've turned a corner with it now, and she's been looking absolutely gorgeous and giving me lovely growth for the last kind of 8 to 9 months now, and I just feel really proud of this one. And actually picking this plant up and looking at it, I can see that it does need a fairly significant prune back. It's got some areas of dead growth like that, but on the whole, I am just, again, like I know I'm saying, I'm so proud of myself with so many of these plants, but I feel so proud of this one. It is now a really big, full, luscious, gorgeous plant, and the Boston Fern is one that I struggled with for years. Like, I don't know why, I just found it such a difficult plant to grow. I know it's meant to be one of the easier ferns, and I don't know why I struggled so much, but yeah, this one has been going strong in my collection for I think about 2 years now, and it is really, really, really sizing up. I think it would now really benefit from either a repot to a much bigger pot because it is in desperate need, it dries out so quickly, or dividing the plants, and that is something that I have only tried doing with a fern successfully, or I've only done successfully once before. I've killed a couple of ferns trying to divide them, and in theory, if your plant's got a really good root system, you should just be able to kind of break the plant apart and divide it and just pot it up and it will be fine. But I've killed probably 3 or 4 ferns in the past trying to do that, so I'm a little bit nervous about it. If anyone's got any tips for doing that, then let me know. But yeah, I just think it is so wonderful. It is such a beautiful, like gorgeous textured plant, and right now I just feel like I can't fully appreciate it because it's hanging in the window just above my head and obviously getting very good light there. It's very happy, but I just kind of look up at it and appreciate it from below, and it's rare, apart from when I water it, that I actually am able to just hold it up and see it like this, and God, it's grown so much, so much. And in fact, I can see little bits of new growth, just like there. Can you see just unraveling? I love how the new fronds unfurl. They're just so lovely. So yeah, I am gonna probably be brave and try dividing this one at some point because I think I'm gonna have to. But when I look at it compared to the clip that I showed you it in, I feel like it's a win. I feel like it's one that isn't just fluke that it's doing well now. I'm actually like solid in the fact that I'm doing a good job with it, which feels really good. And then finally, I thought I would include this one. It is the Variegated Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. And then this is one that I'm quite excited about. This is my Variegated Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. And a couple of years ago, if you'd asked me about this plant, I would have gone, no, I'm not fussed at all. And I do think the price on them was ridiculous when we first started seeing them. But this is actually some cuttings from my friend's plant, and now that it's started to give me some new growth and the growth is actually starting to split, I'm really happy with how it's doing. I did worry at one stage that it had completely reverted, so what I did is I made some chops in the main stem, and it's rooted really well since then, and by doing that I think I have just managed to preserve the variegation because, as I say, it's not highly variegated, but there is, in my opinion, there's a nice little balance. So I'm hoping that when I get some more growth and it sizes up a little bit, it should look gorgeous. And I know this might not seem like an epic growth comparison to finish on, but this is what the plant's looking like now, and I have chopped this plant back many times since the last time you saw it in that clip. And if I hadn't chopped the plant, if I just let it keep kind of growing wild, I reckon from the floor it would probably be about up to here now, which I know sounds crazy. But I got it out of the container that I showed you it in before, and I got it onto a moss pole fairly soon after filming my houseplant tour, and it just took off. Like, kind of like my normal Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, the non-variegated one. That one grows like a weed, and this one did the same, and I was like, oh my goodness, I did not expect that. Kind of like what I was saying at the beginning of this video, like when a plant gets going, it can be so speedy, but sometimes it just takes ages for it to actually get going. So yeah, I had it on a moss pole. It was doing absolutely fine. It was giving me lovely variegation. It was sizing up nicely. Had it in my cabinet, and then all of a sudden it started, all of its variegation, all of these bits started going really brown and crispy. And I was like, I don't really understand what's changed. I was like, the humidity stayed the same, the heat stayed the same, the light, obviously, like, it's a controlled environment. I couldn't figure it out. I checked the roots, I made sure the moss pole was hydrated, and in the end, I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered to figure this out. So I chopped the plant completely up, and I took loads of sections of it to the London plant swap. And I left one section back for myself, and I was like, if at some point maybe I decide to grow the plants again, then I will. And that teeny tiny cutting I left back for myself has grown into this, and I'm like, I kind of love it again. But I don't know if I have the energy for the whole cycle it went through before. So I'm currently just growing it in sphagnum moss. I'm not encountering any issues growing it that way. It is still in the cabinet. And last time the issues started fairly soon after I'd got it into soil. So I'm like, obviously I don't really want to grow it this way forever, but maybe I just keep it growing in this way for the time being and then take some more cuttings. I don't know. So yeah, if this was your plant, what would you do? But it is an amazing plant, and as I say, it does grow so fast. I'm glad I had that experience with the plant, seeing just how quick it could be, because I feel like it's kind of motivated me a little bit to pursue things and kind of keep going with it now. But we'll see. It's one that I am constantly kind of umming and ahhing about. I want to just love it, but I think it just scares me a bit. So have any of you had this experience with this plant? And if so, how did you fix it? But yeah, so those are all of the growth comparisons I chose for this video today, but I love making these kind of videos. I find them so fun, and I find it just really interesting to see how far my plants have come. So if you would like more videos like this, please let me know. I often think at some point in the future, when I've got a lot of time, I might sit down and do an update kind of from start to finish of my houseplant tour and show you how everything is doing. That would be quite interesting. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.